Hello everyone, this is part 20 of What If Naruto Was Neglected and Was Trained by Shisui, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Both Namika's siblings danced beautifully together across the open playing field, each step sending small tremors through the ground that would rock their bodies from the pressure. They were moving at speeds that were almost impossible to follow, tearing up the ground so much that not even grass remained, just destroyed soil. Occasionally their fists would meet in a battle, but they would break away just as fast as they came together. Naruto's dual Sharingan could track Natsu's movements as he raced across the ground, feet glowing with a thin layer of chakra that only served to make him quicker. The blonde boy didn't even have enough time to blink, knowing if he did then Natsu would have capitalized on his moment of weakness and strike. He could feel his eyes starting to dry up, but he was thankful that he could channel his blood chakra periodically to his eyes to keep them moistured and open for longer periods of time. Natsu on the other hand was grinning, the orange pigment around his eyes glowing thanks to the bright rays of the shining sun hitting him just right. Golden eyes were just as fiery, the dash for a pupil looking at his brother with amusement as they danced. Thanks to his sage mode, he could easily tell where Naruto would be going next thanks to his chakra signature. And since the blonde's reserves were larger than before, it was almost child's play to sense where he would be going. During this time no jutsu was used between the two of them. Neither have spoken since the fight had started, and internally both had come to a silent conclusion to test the other one on their own physical prowess. It was one thing to be good at jutsu, and it was better to be a master of the art. But a real shinobi knew that at the core of their abilities was drawn from taijutsu. Everyone's chakra consumption and reserves were different from one another, with two never being the same. And it wasn't uncommon for most shinobi to excel in ninjutsu rather than taijutsu. But with enough speed, practice, and enough precision, taijutsu could render even the highest level of ninjutsu useless. Natsu believed this, having had lessons from the village's taijutsu master guy after mastering sage mode. Natsu clearly had the advantage during hand-to-hand combat. He knew it, and Naruto knew it. But thanks to Naruto's damn Sharingan, it was hard to get a solid hit off on the blonde. His strength increase had started to leave bruises on Naruto's body, but they would heal in a matter of seconds, putting him back to square one. And when he did manage to land a solid strike, Naruto would bounce back with one just as fast, tanking the hit and barely being affected. Natsu, starting to get irritated, used his natural speed to run around the blonde, fist glowing with a thin layer of chakra as he sent a sharp jab towards Naruto. Thanks to Naruto's Sharingan, he was able to see the attack get close to him. Stepping back, he put enough distance between them and brought his arm up to block his face, letting Natsu's fist graze against his shoulder. Naruto was left confused as he was sent flying back by an unknown force, his face stinging with pain as he spun in the air from the invisible attack before landing on the ground with a loud thud. He wasted no time jumping to his feet, wiping away a small amount of blood from his lip, making sure to keep the liquid on the back of his palm. Neither spoke a word at what just happened. Instead, Naruto was drawn to Natsu's orange pigment around his eyes, signifying his sage mode, which was no doubt the cause of the phantom attack. Natsu stared into Naruto's blazing Sharingan fearlessly, knowing full well he was in no danger from the fearsome dojutsu. As far as the redhead was concerned, there was nothing his brother could do that he couldn't do better. Even his new Sharingan didn't seem to measure up to his sage mode. How incredibly boring. Naruto didn't take the obvious bait laid before him by his brother. Instead, choosing to stay quiet as he jumped back, putting even more distance between them. The little stunt didn't sit quite right with Natsu, making the redhead frown in annoyance as he scratched the back of his head. Running away. I honestly didn't see this coming from you. This time Naruto responded, yeah well, sorry to disappoint. Natsu shrugged his shoulders, not caring enough to think of a verbal response, so he decided to go with a more physical approach. Taking his time to walk forward, he formed a singular hand sign, making chakra pulse around his form. Nothing you can do can ever disappoint me, Naruto ni. Naruto raised an eyebrow, his Sharingan automatically snapping to the one-handed seal. Oh. And why is that? I seem to remember you being the most disappointed of them all. Well, 'cause all your power is all thanks to me. That threw Naruto for a complete loop, his fingers slumping slightly as he tried to comprehend the words that pricked his skin. Sadly for him, Natsu gave him no time to think of a response. Using the hand that formed the seal, he closed it into a tight fist before bringing it behind him. Fire started to form around his knuckles as he expanded his fingers again, causing a thick beam of flame to shoot off around Naruto. Fire style, flame rope. Naruto didn't bother to dodge out of the way of the incoming attack. Instead, he brought his hand up and closed into a tight fist, channeling a small portion of chakra as the blood from his previous injury shot itself off his hand, forming into its own rope structure and smacking the jutsu away. Naruto didn't stop there, opening his fist and conjuring the blood back to his hand until it coated the skin in a thin protective layer. With a sidestep, he grabbed the flame rope and yanked it towards him. Natsu grunted as he felt himself get pulled, forcing himself to dispel his jutsu and dig his heels into the ground to try and stop himself. Unluckily for him though, he couldn't stop his momentum from carrying him forward. Thinking quickly, he ducked under a punch that almost collided with his face and put both hands into the ground, kicking up and breaking the ground beneath him, shooting dirt and blades of grass into Naruto's face. Naruto had no outward reaction as the particles of dirt smacked his face, easily seeing past them with his Sharingan and looking directly at his brothers, falling back as his foot came inches from his nose. Once again, however, he was struck with the same invisible attack just like before. Natsu grinned in his awkward position, enjoying the look of pain, annoyance coming off of his brother's face as he quickly jumped back onto his feet before smashing his fist deep into the blonde boy's gut, only for his body to explode into a cloud of dust, with a log of wood replacing Naruto. A subcision. He's quick. Natsu arched his back, fixing his posture as he waited patiently in the now desolate forest, with Naruto being nowhere in sight. Standing his ground, he twirled his wrist several times trying to get the feeling of Naruto substitution jutsu to leave the appendage. It almost felt like a phantom hit that left no real satisfaction to the skin. Really Naru-ni, resulting in hiding back, Natsu said, his tone leaking with disappointment as his eyes immediately snapped over a lone tree to his right. Naruto scowled as he pushed his back up till it was fully against the bark of the tree he was in fact hiding behind. He felt his scowl only deepen when his brother's eyes locked onto his location instantly. He knew that Sage Mode was good at sensory, but he didn't even get a full 5 seconds before his position was compromised. Shit, that damn Sage Mode is making it hard to get the jump on him. Come on, think Naruto, think. Naruto thought to himself, quietly moving to another tree in the distance only for Natsu's eyes to follow wherever he went. He did this for several seconds, until Natsu started to grow impatient with all the lollygagging. Clicking his tongue against his teeth in irritation, he wiped his head around, feeling the faintest spark of chakra ignite his senses before he took off for a particular tree he knew his brother was hiding at. Fine, let's make this more interesting, Natsu said, bringing up both hands to form a cross-hand seal before 2 identical clones of himself popped up next to him. Naruto cursed to himself the second Natsu and his clones started to move in on him, getting closer with each passing second. Deciding to not wait for them to get any closer, he jumped off the tree branch he was residing on before forming a single-handed seal of his own, pulling the water out of the tree until it swirled around him before shooting off towards the Natsu and the clones. One of the copies wasn't so lucky as he took on the majority of the hit, lacking Sage Mode and exploding as soon as the thick water collided against him, popping into a cloud of smoke. The second copy of Natsu couldn't stop his running in time and ran face first into the destroyed clone's smoke, making him go completely blind to the world around him. Without even noticing, a familiar flame rope lit up his face in flames as the intense heat burned his eyes. The clone screamed in pain as the jutsu wrapped around his skull before being yanked forward and getting smashed into the ground, once again exploding into smoke, making it even harder for the real Natsu to see. Natsu just smirked, sidestepping to avoid the rope that lashed its way towards him, forming a tiger seal, causing the smoke of his now deceased shadow clone start to flicker. Naruto realized what happened at the last second, missing the glimmer in the vapor before total blackness overtook the smoke and it exploded. Natsu watched as the body of Naruto was blown back, tumbling on the ground. Natsu relaxed his posture, his eyes not even bothered to follow the now scorched body of his little brother. He shut his eyelids as he stood proud in the center of the clearing, his orange pigment representing his sage mode still glowing nobly in the still waking sun. He shifted his position, putting more pressure onto his left leg as he twirled his wrist again, trying his best to calm down and suppress the urge to hit something. Natsu wasn't sure just how long he stood rooted in place, wondering what just his brother was planning to do. Opening his eyes again, he didn't even need to look around the empty space to know to sense everything that was around him. To his right, hidden behind the tallest tree in the area, was a clone of his brother, and the body of Naruto that was scorched before had long ago popped into a pillow of smoke. Just above the hiding clone was in the branches were two more copies, both having a significant of their chakra shared between the two. Straight behind him was the still unmoving body of Kisame, who had yet to awake, still being able to feel even the smallest hint of his almost depleted chakra reserves. And finally was the real version of Naruto's body, that was making barely an effort to conceal himself in the bushes to his left. He breathed a heavy sigh, staring directly at Naruto through the bush. Even with all this new power, you still are on the run. You have 2 Sharingan now, 1 even gold, and you're using blood-style ninjutsu that I've never even seen before. Natsu said, disappointment shining in his eyes as he shook his head. I was expecting so much more from you. Well, it seems like I did end up disappointing you, can't say I'm much surprised either. Naruto said, crouching behind the bush as he formed a singular seal once again. Instead, this time he stayed unmoving, he side-eyed his brother. The relaxed position of the redhead did squash a few lingering doubts Naruto was having in this encounter. Foregoing any intention or need to hide himself, he easily let his brother know his location, not like he wouldn't find out anyway, but this did give Naruto the advantage of spacing. Sage mode was too much of a crux to our blonde hero, even with his Sharingan seeing past every attack he sadly couldn't see the invisible ones that struck without a lead. And while he could go toe-to-toe with Natsu, Naruto didn't want to run the risk of using too much chakra just to get past his brother's senjutsu. Especially when the Kyuubi has still yet to make an appearance. So Naruto decided on an alternative approach for dealing with Natsu, stalling. He wasn't proud of the idea by any means, but it was the only thing that seemed plausible in his current situation. He didn't know how much longer he would have to wait out until his sage mode went away, and Natsu himself seemed to hold similar feelings as well. Since his clones he had summoned lacked the orange pigment around their eyes, no doubt Natsu was trying to conserve all of the chakra that he could. Naruto just needed to wait until the right time to strike. He himself was also limited on the amount of time he had at his disposal. But damn if he knew the perfect way to stall for a little extra time. Well then, since you so-called gave me this power, isn't it only fair to push some of the blame onto you? I mean, after all, you did this for me, right? TCH. Blame me. You should be thanking me. Natsu returned, his voice dropping several octaves matching with the heated glare that tried to burn away the bush Naruto was residing behind. Because of me you grew the balls to finally leave this village and grow strong. You were hindered here, kept behind a cage with no one to teach you, or even wanted. Naruto scoffed, biting the inside of his cheek to stop himself from lashing out. This bastard really loved the sound of his damn egotistical voice. Even if some of the things he had said were true. You were nothing more than a shitty brother with a complex, nothing less, and definitely nothing more. And yet this shitty brother of yours helped you grow strong. Without me you wouldn't even be half as strong as you are now. Natsu countered back, wrist twirling wildly. Sylvia flew from his mouth and landed just a few inches away from where he stood, anger replacing the disappointment he previously felt. I think you're mistaking pushing away for helping. I have not. Natsu screamed, catching Naruto completely by surprise. Vanishing from his spot, Natsu appeared directly behind the blonde, the bush igniting into flames as Naruto barely even had enough time to smash Natsu's hand away. But the redhead did manage to use the block to his advantage and gripped Naruto by the collar, bringing just inches away from his face. Natsu was furious, his eyes now replaced with a dark red in color, his face contorting angrily as he growled. Flashing his enlarged canines to Naruto. I was the only one of us who saw what our parents were doing to you. I was the one who genuinely asked why they refused to train you, I was the only one who wanted you there. I pushed and pushed but they refused to budge. Didn't you ever find it strange how I only was rude to you after we started out training? How I always challenged you, Always told you to keep up with me. Natsu gave pause, allowing himself to catch his breath and to give Naruto a moment to digest this. The only reaction from the blonde was the small widening of his eyes. So what did I do? I pushed you away from us. This finally gave you the opportunity to grow stronger. You met that damned Uchiha who trained you, you managed to escape this whole village that burdened you since the start. You come back with 2 Sharingan, special blood type ninjutsu, and yet you say I did nothing for you. He retaliated, picking Naruto up and smashing him into the nearest tree. The impact was so severe that dozens of leaves fell from the branches that shook with visible shock. What bullshit excuses to justify you being an asshole? Naruto seethed, bringing his hands up. He dug his nails into Natsu's forearms. The words dropped with malice as he spoke. Naruto's eyes on Natsu felt like a hot iron scorching the latter's skin. The look of pure animosity glowed brighter than the sun in this exact moment that even Natsu was caught by surprise by the intensity. But before Natsu could respond, both Namika's siblings felt a huge gust of wind fly over them. Natsu's grip was loosened thanks to the large blast and was forced to release it, letting Naruto drop to the ground, both siblings shaving to cover their eyes from the amount of pressure the shockwave conjured. Seconds later, an evil presence washed over both teenagers, making them both snap their heads over through the forest and looking towards the sender or Konoha. It was a dark and vile feeling, making their skin crawl with unease. A feeling that both of them knew all too well. They could see it, a towering cloud of visible red chakra, twisting and swirling itself, trying to form a coherent shape that it desired. Shooting off, what looked like tendrils took shape in the back, splitting into 8 matching appendages, coiling around buildings and smashing them into pieces. What the? Natsu muttered, being the first of the 2 to break out of his trance. Now, Naruto thought, already having the advantage of being on the floor, sent a sweep kick towards Natsu's legs, effectively dropping the still somewhat dazed redhead onto his back. Acting fast, Naruto whipped out a kunai from his pouch and pounced, attempting to pierce Natsu. Natsu's hand shot upwards, grabbing the Sharingan wielder's wrist before it came down onto him. His eyes lost their red tint and the orange pigment around his eyes had started to dim. Natsu physically cringed as he felt the massive amount of chakra that started to flood his senses from every direction. Another gust of wind ran through the clearing, and before he could release what was happening, he recoiled in pain as the wind distracted him, and Naruto moved the kunai closer to himself and plunged it down just above Natsu's hip. Cursing in pain, he was then kicked in the stomach, his body tumbling through the grass, ripping it into shreds. The impact was so great Natsu wasn't even sure if it happened until he felt himself smash against the nearest tree, gasping in pain as several shards of bark dug into his skin. Don't move. Blinking several times to steady his blurry vision, Natsu opened his eyes to see a large blade or blood pushed up against his neck and Naruto's foot pushing against his open wound on his torso. Natsu winced again, but not from the pain from his wound, but from the demonic chakra that refused to leave his senses. Looking out from the corner of his eye, he looked again at the large chakra spiral that had still yet to stop growing. Naruto could only grin, enjoying the satisfaction of one-upping his older brother and catching him completely off guard. The blood blade made from the sanguine liquid that Natsu spilled had only made Naruto feel better about his mini-victory. Pushing the blade deeper into his neck, Naruto spoke again. If you even think about moving, I'll kill you right here. I have only one goal and you will not be ruining this for me. Hey, not that I think you even can. Considering, Naruto followed his captive's gaze over to the demonic chakra growing taller, its right tendrils starting to swing across the blue sky. Something like that has made an appearance. You bastard. Natsu scowled, turning back and looking deep into the dual Sharingan eyes. You knew about this. You're willingly letting a damn demon devastate half our village. And for what? Because you didn't get enough attention as a young kid. His eyes flashed back to the demonic red color as he yelled at Naruto. Naruto snarled, applying more pressure onto the open wound as he glared darkly. Please, like I'm that damn petty. I have a dream, an ambition, and a promise that I swore to keep, and I don't care what I have to do in order to make sure it comes true. It's a good thing I already dealt with Kushina, not that Natsu needs to know anything about that. Before Naruto could even get another word out, Natsu's body exploded into red chakra, forcing Naruto to dispel his blood jutsu and jump backwards when he felt the intense amount of heat that emitted from the Palabale life source start to burn his skin. Natsu snarled, three deep red chakra tails forming behind him as he entered his tailed beast state, chakra bubbling around him. The wrists shit out wards, wrapping themselves around Naruto's arms, forcing and pulling forwards. You're pathetic. If you truly had a dream, then you would have found an easier solution than destroying half of Konoha. Natsu growled out, the orange pigment around his eyes faded away completely, letting the Kyuubi's chakra take its place as he stored the remains of Sage chakra for later. As soon as his Sage mode melted away, he grinned, his vision going back to normal along with his senses easing down on him. The wound on his torso started to sizzle, already showing signs of healing as his three tails chakra cloak clung to his skin. Naruto grimaced as he struggled to stand his ground from the tail wrapped around him, digging his heel into the ground to try and stabilize himself. Glaring, he bit the inside of his cheek, drawing a small amount of blood into his mouth. You wouldn't understand what I'm doing. The majority think what I'm doing is vile, but this will help save the shinobi world. Breathing heavily, the blood in his mouth escaped through his lips and took the form of a small bird that latched itself onto the tails. Blood style, exploding bird. The second the bird got near the sizzling tail, its eyes began to glow. The intense heat from the Kyuubi's chakra ignited Naruto's just used the second it reached it, making it explode and ripping the tail in half, effectively setting Naruto free. The tail didn't take long to grow back, reforming almost immediately as he crouched down into all fours, like a predator ready to pounce on its prey. Putting an excess amount of the Kyuubi's chakra into his legs, propelling himself forward with enough momentum to destroy the ground underneath him. He raised his clawed hand and swiped across Naruto's chest, his nails like daggers as they punctured the blonde skin. Not even surprised that the body he attacked popped into a cloud of smoke, he turned on his heel, stopping a kunai from getting closer to him with his claws. Feeling satisfaction from the tense look of his brother, he ducked down, with speed that Naruto's Sharingan could barely follow, and jammed his elbow into the blonde's gut. Naruto reacted fast, however, snapping his hand down to catch the elbow before it made contact. The attack, while blocked, did have enough force to drive the back of his hand into his stomach. Grimacing from the small amount of pain, he pushed through it, throwing his elbow away, trying to force Natsu off balance. It didn't work, however, as Natsu just shifted his weight onto his back foot, and without forming a single seal, he shot out a streak to fire from his lips. At the last second, Naruto twisted out of the way, sucking out water from the grass under him until it formed into a large dragon. With a loud roar, the water dragon took off towards Natsu. Natsu rolled out of the way of the attack. Using his momentum mid-roll, he curled his three tails around themselves into a coil and launched himself back at the blonde like a spring. Fire style, Flame Blade Jutsu. Water style, Water Blade Jutsu. Naruto countered back, both siblings forming an identical blade of different attributes as they collided against each other. As soon as they connected, Natsu pumped more chakra into his fire weapon, making the bright orange shift into a bright blue as it started to heat itself considerably, gaining more and more from his chakra and his Kyuubi cloak together. A loose sizzling sound erupted into the clearing as steam rose higher and higher from the two blades. Naruto had to fight back a wince from the heat as he poured more chakra into the attack, applying more pressure as his arm started to tremble, forcing him to add his other hand to try and stabilize himself. Damn him. He's still somehow keeping up with me in this form. Natsu thought, irked that he had to drop his Sage mode and lose such a huge advantage. Thinking of the loss of his trump card, he casted a sideways glance back towards Konoha, to his hometown that was on the verge of getting destroyed. Damn it, where the hell is Kar-san? She should already be there by now, trying to stop it. He turned back towards Naruto. I might have to cut this short. The state of the village is more important. Natsu noticed Naruto's arm start to tremble and applied even more pressure onto the blade. As soon as he saw the small indication of annoyance flash across Naruto's eyes, he immediately let the jutsu disperse, using speed that was almost impossible to follow, and breathed a fireball directly towards Naruto. Naruto, using the steam to his advantage, swung his arm across, molding the particles of water to his will, forming a shield that blocked the jutsu. Next thing that Naruto witnessed was Natsu's fist barreling through the shield and smacking Naruto across the face. Grimacing from the pain, his head snapped to the left, his cheek stinging from the hit. Performing a quick shunshin, Naruto appeared to the redhead's left, water blade still in hand, but before it could make contact, the three tails shot from Natsu's back and swiped across Naruto. Thinking fast, Naruto dropped his blade, forming a quick one-handed seal and made the water explode like a geyser, sending both Natsu and himself flying to their respective sides. As soon as Naruto landed, he looked up, noticing that Natsu barely moved from his position, completely unscathed from his jutsu. Scowling, he wiped his mouth, not even caring about his now bruised cheek that was already healing. He's tough, Naruto. I don't want to say this, but I don't think we can beat him without my chakra, Aisabu said. I know. I don't think so either. Naruto was annoyed, but was willingly to accept it since he was fighting against a Jinchuriki. But it still pissed him off that Natsu technically had the advantage. Naruto, I have a plan. Naruto nodded, as he blocked another fire jutsu from Natsu. Rolling out of the way of the phoenix flying at him, he grabbed a kunai from his pouch and threw it towards Natsu without even aiming. Natsu was almost offended by the throw. Seeing such an academy-level technique sent his way made him deeply scowl, taking it as an insult to his skills, so he tried to swipe it away, only for him to be surprised when he couldn't tear his eyes away. What the? Natsu tried to force his eyes away and grew more annoyed. Every time he tried to move his pupils, they snapped back into the metallic weapon, his vision almost shaking and turning blurry whenever he tried. Performing another shunshin, Naruto appeared to Natsu's left, right out of his field of vision, using the blood that leaked from his eye to form two small kunai between his fingers and jammed them deep into Natsu's midriff, penetrating through the Kyuubi cloak. Natsu's eyes went wide in pain as blood flew from his new wound. Using the blood from Natsu's body, Naruto formed a scythe from the gore. He brought it towards the sky, his body illuminating into a matching red chakra cloak with three tails erupting from his back. Natsu could only gaze in pure disbelief as the demonic chakra of Aisabu, taking on a small golden tint, wrapped its tails around the sanguine scythe and swung it down with a roar, stabbing straight through his cloak and into his shoulder blade, mere inches away from his neck. Natsu screamed in pain from the attack, his howl growing even louder as Naruto jumped over him. Yanking the scythe free from the body prison, he spun on his heel, creating just enough space between them and flew through several seals. Water style, bloody torrent. Once again using the blood from Natsu's new wound, Naruto swung his arm around him, like he was imitating a cascading wave as the blood followed him. Using particles of water from thin air, the wave increased in size, the water mixing itself with the blood as he hurled it towards Natsu. Natsu wasn't able to dodge in time, instead he tried to bring his tails up to block the majority of the hit. Flexing a crazy amount of pressure onto his tails, it helped dwindle the attack, but not by much. A loud bang rang across the forest as the jutsu smacked into Natsu, causing his body to constrain painfully as a shockwave shook the surrounding trees of their leaves. Gasping in pain, Natsu was knocked right off his feet, his head whipping back as the jutsu broke through his three tails, his skull smacking against the ground as several beads of saliva flew from his mouth. The red-headed Namikaze moaned in pain as attempted to get back onto his feet, his body steaming as the water from the previous jutsu evaporated off of his chakra cloak. He sent a glare towards Naruto, his hand coming up and grazing over his wound on his shoulder blade, fighting back the urge to cringe as a sharp pain shot through his body. He didn't even need to look at the wound to see that it was a serious one. Probably the worst injury he had ever received. And it was from his own brother. He didn't know whether to be incredibly pissed off or insanely proud at this moment from his brother's power boost. But all the pain that he was feeling for the very first time seemed to squash any positive reaction from the feeling. Especially after seeing that he did in fact have a Bayu sealed within him, confirming Natsu's suspicion that he had since he returned to Konoha. Natsu was starting to lose feeling in his left arm, his hand slipping on the grass like a fish out of water. His cloak had started to seep back into him, gravitating towards his open gash in order to heal it as soon as possible and dry up the remaining specks of blood so Naruto could no longer use them. Natsu didn't even have time to comprehend how pathetic he looked as Naruto shunshined once more, kicking Natsu's hand that was holding him upwards, making him fall to the ground. Naruto grabbed Natsu by his hair, pulling on the red strands roughly, lifting Natsu until he was eye level with him. A shit-eating grin spread across the dual Sharingan user's face, his three swinging tails swaying happily behind him, almost like they were mocking Natsu. Natsu glared daggers at Naruto, hoping it would cut him up on the spot as the blonde tightened his grip around his hair. "You asshole, you're trying to kill me." Naruto tilted his head to the side in slight confusion, his eyebrows shooting upwards. Well, of course, aren't you? Why the hell would I try to kill you? Natsu said, stuttering slightly as his wound sizzled, trying to heal itself, having to reattach and grow new nerves as he no longer had any feeling in his left arm. You're a traitor, a wanted shinobi in the bingo book. And your order is to be brought back alive. Natsu continued, his ears twitching for a split second as he peeked back over to Konoha. Thankfully Naruto didn't seem to notice the small glint reappear in his eyes as he looked away. Forming a new plan in his head, Natsu elaborated further. And I mean, come on, you're my brother. I could never kill you. Naruto didn't even bat an eyelash as he smashed Natsu against the ground with a swing of his arm. His chakra cloak making it mere child's play to toy with Nato's body as he grunted in obvious pain. I would think you would learn to keep such petty schemes to yourself after all this time. It hasn't worked for you once yet, you know. Naruto said, no emotion in his voice as he stared blankly at the back of Natsu's head that was now carved into the floor. Using his position to his advantage, he was able to get a much better look at what was happening in Konoha. You call it a scheme, but I call it the truth. It doesn't matter if you believe me. Just remember, Natsu stated, turning his head as far as he could to meet back into Naruto's jewel eyes. A dark grin threatened to tear Natsu's face in half, catching Naruto completely off guard. No matter what happens, we will always be family. What are you? Now Narumi. Wind style, Raisin Shuriken. Naruto, look out. Naruto felt his eyes go wide as his head reverberated due to Isabu's loud scream for him to get away. Snapping his head to the side, he saw his sister Narumi jump from the field of trees. Her face contorted into a thick scowl as her Raisin Shuriken echoed in the air, flying towards Naruto at an incredible speed. Naruto was caught off guard by the surprise attack, not even aware of his sister's presence until it was too late. His grip loosened on Natsu's hair as he attempted to shunshin away. He found it impossible to do so as he felt one of his chakra tails get cemented into the ground with Natsu's foot grinding it down. Naruto looked deep into the eyes of Natsu, staring at the orange pigment now surrounding his upper eyelids once again. Natsu's arm reached out, forming his own Rasengan, only much smaller than Narumi's. His grin never leaving his face. Rasengan. Natsu screamed, ignoring the pain in his shoulder as he smashed the ball of pure chakra into Narumi's passing jutsu, amplifying the female Namikaze's shuriken, making it almost double in size as it tore across the field, ripping up anything in its path. Then the only sound that was heard was the tearing of flesh being wrenched forcefully from a body. Then a small thud as an arm fell to the ground. Time seemed to slow down for all three Namikaze siblings as they all watched the next scene play out in total silence. The second Narumi's jutsu vanished, Naruto was able to escape from Natsu, dropping his own chakra cloak, allowing him to jump away with practice ease. Narumi landed next to Natsu gracefully, not even making a sound as she stared at Naruto and the steadily growing distance he was putting between them. Sparing Natsu a small glance, her eyes flashed with worry as she noticed the large wound accompanying his shoulder. Natsu noticed the concerned stare and merely shook his head. Now was not the time for explanation. Narumi understood the head shake immediately, turning her gaze back onto Naruto. Naruto felt like screaming, his face twisting in pure agony as he looked towards his left arm, or more specifically, the lack of arm that now laid motionless in the center of the forest clearing. He reached over with his one remaining arm and grazed his new wound. His arm was sliced perfectly by that damned Raisin Shuriken from his forearm downward. Wincing from the contact, he channeled as much chakra as he could and forcefully clogged up his muscle tissue to stop the wound of its bleeding. Knowing that if he didn't, then he would most likely pass out from blood loss, or best case scenario, just start to feel fatigued. The only silver lining was thanks to Isabu's chakra, it helped minimize the pain that he was currently feeling when, and after his arm was ripped from him. He made a mistake, and he paid the penalty for it massively. He had gotten grown too arrogant to believe that he was safe from whatever tricks Natsu had up his sleeve. But the last thing he expected was for Narumi to jump into the fray. Why the hell is she here? Naruto yelled internally, annoyance bubbling down to his very core as he snarled towards his siblings. The Bayu in the village should have distracted her, the only reason I brought it was to stop her. And it was in that moment that Naruto felt the large pool of demonic chakra begin to fade away. Naruto looked towards Konoha, his eyes going as wide as saucers as dozens of golden chains wrapped themselves about the Bayou, halting its movements, making it immobile. But that's impossible. I put Kushina under that genjutsu. There's no way. You seem pretty confused, seeing as how Car-san put your plan to a close. Narumi said, interrupting the blonde train of thought. Naruto scowled, sending him a wicked glare. What the hell did you do? Nothing. Sai and Shizuka-chan had found Car-san and brought her to us. Kurenai-chan is the one who reversed the genjutsu she was under. Narumi clicked her tongue in her mouth, wanting to spit from the mere thought. And to think that you would put your own mother into a genjutsu to help destroy our home. You truly are beyond help. And when did I ever ask for your help? Naruto yelled, Sharingan glowing as Isabu tried his best to help calm the deep animosity growing in him, and fight back the huge feeling of betrayal from Kurenai's actions. Her actions solidified how she truly felt about him, that she had cut the rope binding the two of them together. And this only served to make Naruto even angrier. A small flash of gold flashed up and down Naruto's body, so fast that to any mere Junin then it would have just looked like a trick of the light. But both Natsu and Narumi thought that their eyes weren't playing tricks on them, and as soon as they noticed the light it vanished. Receding back into Naruto as he let the anger course through his veins. You bastards, you're really starting to piss me off. He flashed again, this one much more noticeable than the previous one. Narumi scoffed, her eyes glowing red with demonic energy. Cut the victim card shit. What you're doing is vile, and don't even try to hide it. Yuno told me everything about your little plan. Yuno. Who's Yuno? Natsu said, putting the rest of his attention onto the blonde boy. Meanwhile Naruto was seething, foam almost spilling from his lips as he grinded his teeth together. He wasn't expecting his plan to backfire this much in such a short period of time, and what the hell was up with Yuno? Balling his fists in irritation he cursed Yuno's name. This was not part of the deal, he wanted to keep Narumi far away from Natsu so he could carry out his mission. He was so close to. What the hell was Yuno doing? Narumi, noticing a flicker of surprise run across Naruto's eyes, she continued. Drawing both boys' attention, especially Naruto's as he stood rooted in place. Oh Yuno, she said, her hand extending out, pointing a clawed finger towards Naruto. How you plan to eradicate all Jinchuriki from the elemental nations. Flashback. The day before Naruto fought Kisame. Naruto stood overlooking the vast wilderness of Konogakure's land from Sasori's hideout. The large bay window gave him access to a large foundation of trees that stretched so far that he couldn't even see the end of it. It had been a couple hours since he had learned the name of the one man that he had been dreaming to kill for the past few years. Danzo Shimura. Even thinking of the man's name sent his mind into a small state of frenzy. Feeling his hands clam up in anticipation, wanting nothing more than to head to Konoha at this very instant. And take his life. But still, even as he stood here thinking of ways to take down Danzo, his mind couldn't help but drift into a different headspace. One that he had been thinking about off and on for several months now. You're still up. I would have assumed you would have been asleep by now. Naruto didn't turn around as a deep voice made its way over to him. Instead he kept his vision out of the window, not even bothering to meet the man's eyes. His arms crossed over his chest, resting comfortably across his jacket as he stood in place, enjoying the quiet night that blessed the elemental nations tonight. Yes, well, I've been thinking. Naruto responded, feeling the presence of a man next to him. Peeking through his eyelashes, his Mangekyo Sharingan swirling as he stared at the side profile of Yuno who was now standing a mere few inches away from him. Yuno hummed, tapping his foot against the ground a few times like he was trying to remember a song he had forgotten. Is that so? Naruto turned his gaze away from the Atarashi member and fixated his vision onto the large village of Kumo that sat rooted in the distance. Finding it appealing at how quiet the village looked to be. It looked almost barren as it laid there, the only signs of life that resonated from the village was the small beams of light that shone through the cage tower from the top, and a few stores that have yet to close. It was much different from Konoha's nightlife, which usually consisted of shinobi still late night training, or multiple bars staying open well into the a.m.s. But still, despite the quiet atmosphere of Kumogakure, the village itself looked peaceful. Radiating a good semblance of comfort and understanding for its people, the Raikage must be proud to lead a village like that. Yuno-san, if you wouldn't mind, I have a question for you. Naruto asked, his eyes breaking away from the cage tower and moving over to a large cliff that overlooked the village, where small sparks could barely be seen flashing in the darkness of the world. Well then, ask away. Yuno said, slightly curious on what exactly was going through the blonde's head, especially after the talk they had less than 2 hours ago regarding Danzo. Though the talk did go much better than Yuno had originally thought it would, he was left trying to inquire on why Naruto had gone quiet for the rest of the night. Yuno wasn't one to pry for answers, but it never hurt to be just a little meddlesome here and there. Those fortunes that me and my old team kept finding, did you have something to do with that? Yuno grinned. Unfolding his arms, he placed a hand on his hip. What makes you say that? Context. I don't think that a person from Atarashi, who sealed a Bayu in me and implanted this Sharingan into me, would be able to keep their mouth shut for so long. So you most likely told the rest of your teammates, and it's also not a big shock that the person who threatened me in Yukigakure happened to be a Atarashi member as well. Naruto said, turning his head back to look at Yuno's profile once again. But then that leaves the mystery on how you managed to know things you shouldn't, like my blood style or that my team would have encountered the blue flames on our first mission. Coupled with the fact that the fortune revolved around me in particular, it's too big of a coincidence. Yuno chuckled, throwing his arms into the air as he shrugged his shoulders. His grin grew wider as he finally looked at Naruto for the first time since he arrived. Guilty as charged then. How did you do it? How were these fortunes accurate? Our old leader in our group, Akira, was born with a special bloodline. She was able to see the near future of a single person if she had consumed a small amount of that person's DNA. Naruto raised an eyebrow. I see, that's a pretty powerful bloodline, he said, turning back to stare at the mountain he was looking at previously. What DNA of mine did you get? Yuno nodded in agreement. Lowering his arms, he walked closer to the glass and looked up into the bright silver moon. Hair. Once I made sure you weren't going to die, I grabbed a clump of your hair before leaving. Naruto nodded in understanding. It was all starting to come together and make sense in his mind. Putting his hands into his pockets, he straightened his posture. You said old leader. Did something happen to her? Murdered, by the Akatsuki. It was the reason why we came to recruit you so early. She was only able to see your future until you were 13, so we had no other choice. Then, you met Itsumi and the rest is history. I see. My condolences. No need. But I must say, this isn't what you really wanted to ask me, was it? Naruto chuckled to himself as he nodded his head. Naruto fished around in his pocket for a second before pulling out a small folded piece of notebook paper. He handed it to Yuno, who took it without a second thought. Unfolding the paper and letting his eyes scan over the contents for several minutes. Naruto waited patiently for Yuno to finish as he put his hand back into his pocket, his Sharingan picking up yet another large spark that shone off the mountain top in the distance. He could pick up a faint chakra sense emitted from that mountain, one that Isabu said was painstakingly familiar to be considered foreign. Yuno hummed again as he pocketed the note that Naruto had given him. His face contorting into a grin. It's interesting. I got to say that I am impressed. Naruto just shrugged. Isabu helped me come up with it. And if possible, I would like to start tonight. Naruto said, this time locking both eyes on Yuno's own, unwavering from the slight pulse of shock he saw in the Atarashi's eyes. Tonight. That's moving quite fast, don't you think? Waiting would be pointless. If we plan to create a new ninja village, then we need to start right away. And I have the perfect idea. Naruto said, drawing Yuno's attention towards him as he walked closer to the glass. The blonde pointed into the forest ahead of him, where a masquerade of trees hidden in darkness obscured their vision. I'm sure you sensed them too. There are two massive chakra signatures getting closer as we speak. Isabu had tried to get a good read on them, but judging solely on their massive chakra pulls, they could very much be Akatsuki. Yuno nodded. He was thinking along the same lines. I agree, but what does that have to do with creating a ninja village? Naruto closed his eyes and took in a deep breath. It was now or never. If Yuno himself refused his own plan and ideas, then there was nothing left for Naruto to do. He was left with little to no options left, and his grand scheme would have been all for nothing, and he would have nothing to show for it. He would probably have to be on the run from both the Akatsuki and Atarashi if Yuno refused his proposition right here and now. His mouth felt like cotton as he tried to form the words he wanted to say. It was a 50-50 chance and Naruto was betting it all. Yuno-san, how much better of a world do you think it would be if Jinchuriki didn't exist? Yuno felt his eyes widen into the size of saucers. That definitely was not what he was expecting to leave the blonde's mouth. He would have been more prepared if Naruto himself had said they were going to go after a Jinchuriki themselves, not say that their whole existence would be better left and forgotten. What are you trying to say? Exactly what it sounds like. A world where we eradicate all Jinchuriki. Think about it, if we managed to take away the power of the Beiyu from all major villages, they would have less of a reason to go to war. There are always attempts to capture Jinchuriki, and each always ends with a war breaking out. And groups like Akatsuki profit off of these wars and are able to slip through the confusion and steal these Beiyu for themselves. But if we take that away, be it keep them sealed away forever, or set them free in a remote island or settlement, then no village would be stupid enough to try and capture all 9 when they're together. Yuno digested what was being said to him. What Naruto was saying made sense. Not only would it help stop unnecessary death around the world, but it would also stop another village from becoming too powerful. But while it sounded like a simple solution on paper, the methods to make it work or get people to accept it would be difficult. Regardless, the majority would never accept something like this. Then that would mean that they had to conduct a mission like this in total secret, keeping it hidden from the shinobi world. And if the major villages caught wind of them sneaking away with all of these Beiyu, that would only start a war of itself. From all 5 villages forming an alliance to take them down in the quickest and easiest way possible. It was a slippery slope that Yuno found himself agreeing with the more he thought about it. But an issue lied right next to them. What about the Akatsuki? They already have 5 out of 9 Beiyu. If we want a plan like this to even succeed, then we would have to go after them. I wouldn't say we go after them. More like, persuade them. But first, Naruto then pointed his index finger back to the mountain he had been staring at. Yuno followed the finger, his eyes barely catching a glint of light from the mountain top. Naruto felt himself grin as his Sharingan eye started to spin while his right eye turned golden from Isabu's chakra. Let's kill our own Jinchuriki. Flashback end. Silence swept across the forest as Narumi's words came to a halt. Her voice getting carried by the wind, sticking to Naruto's skin like an unpleasant sore. Even Natsu was rendered speechless, left staring at his brother, like he was a completely different person. And it was what Natsu should have known by now. That this wasn't Naruto, this wasn't the brother that he truly did care about, never lying about wanting back. He scowled, not enjoying the crazed look in the blonde's Sharingan eye, and peeked over at Narumi. Slightly relieved that she seemed to be on a similar page to him, giving him a very small sense of comfort at the nonverbal response. And the fact that you would kill your own siblings for a selfish goal. Natsu said. Selfish? You call this goal selfish? Naruto seethed, the enamel ripping off of his teeth as he grinded them together. This is for the future of the world, where Beiyu could live safely away from humans, finally being able to have an ounce of peace. A world where us shinobi won't fight over these Jinchuriki, and go so far into war for them. He flashed gold once more, and this time Natsu stepped a bit closer to Narumi. His orange pigmented eyes not even looking over to her as he whispered so quietly so that only she could hear him. I still have no feeling in my left arm right now, Narumi. Nay. I'll back you up from here. Narumi nodded, allowing her Kyuubi cloak to spread over her body like hot lava, only this cloak had 4 tails swinging behind her. She had been the one between them to be more receptive towards the demonic chakra after all. Narumi offered a small nod in understanding, taking a step in front of Natsu. Her knees bent downwards, crossing her arms diagonally in front of her, taking her family stance, knowing that Naruto had never seen it before and could use it to her advantage. If you think gathering up all Beiyu and setting them free will help bring peace, then you're more of an idiot than I thought you were. Narumi responded. I have to stop you, she thought. I'm partially to blame for all of this happening. Stopping you now will be my redemption. As soon as she finished her train of thought, Naruto was gone from his previous position. Narumi sensed him immediately, her head snapping towards her left-hand side. Thanks to her taijutsu stance, she was easily able to duck under the leg, her body twisting itself around Naruto's leg and smashing her open palm into Naruto's gut. Not even surprised that Naruto's body broke into a pool of water, she rolled out of the way of several blood kunai that flew after her. Not one for being on the defensive, she sprinted towards Naruto, who was in his previous position before his attack. During all of this happening, Natsu had jumped back to avoid getting caught up in the fight. His returned Sage mode, tracking both of his siblings' moves as they entered a taijutsu fight, matching each other blow for blow. Though Narumi seemed to have the upper hand, having more chakra than the both of them, and Naruto was still getting accustomed to having one arm. Despite Natsu's usually arrogant nature, he was more than happy to play backup for his sister. He trusted Narumi's abilities more than anyone's, and since his arm was out of commission still healing, he knew that if he fought beside her at this moment he would only get in her way, even if he was faster than her. Thanks to the distance he put between them, Natsu, not wanting to just stay back and watch, started to run around the two fighting siblings. Doing this made sure that Naruto couldn't get a sneak attack on him, or use him as a pretext to get the jump on Narumi. Wind style, great breakthrough. Narumi surrounded herself in wind chakra and expelled it from her body, forcing Naruto away several steps. Naruto, having to readjust his footing to withstand the jutsu, used his backwards momentum to form several seals with his one free hand. Sliding back across the grass, he reached out, sucking all the particles of water from the kicked-up grass as he could before sending it back towards Narumi. Water style, water dragon whip. Narumi was forced to stop her attack and take several steps back, weaving out of the way as the water whip bended every time she moved, following her every step. Starting to feel annoyed from the relentless jutsu, she tried to see if she could outsmart the attack. Noticing that Naruto didn't have the jutsu connected to him gave her the idea that he wasn't physically controlling it, maybe using his mind to signal it where to go. Using that to her advantage, she brought her tails close to her body, wrapping them around her torso as she slid across the floor, making the water whip miss her by a mere few inches. Seeing as the jutsu was about to change its direction back to her, she unwrapped her 4 chakra tails and planted them into the ground. Smirking to herself, and in one fluid motion she used the tails to launch herself towards Naruto. Spinning over the water whip at incredible speed, straightening her leg out, she attempted to make contact with the side of Naruto's head. Naruto at this moment thanked Shisui for his Sharingan, as it was the only way to see the attack coming in time. Ending his water jutsu, making it splash onto the floor, he brought his one good arm up, catching the foot right before it made contact to his skull. The strength of the attack left Naruto stunned for a second, the pressure being so strong that he was sent skidding to the side. Calling out to Aisabu again, Naruto's cloak came flying back, using his tails to ease himself to a stop. Only for his senses to alert him, his Sharingan picking up a red blur, forcing him to shunshin away as Narumi descended, her fist smashing into the ground where Naruto previously was. As soon as Naruto regained his footing again, he decided to go on the offensive and took off towards Narumi. Picking up one of the many Daiseiken kunai as he ran, his left Sharingan eye starting to spin as blood leaked out from his pupil. Misdirection. Throwing the kunai towards Narumi, the female Namiakse felt her eyes get entranced by the metallic weapon. An all too familiar feeling she had experienced in their fight back in Yukigaku. She started to scowl as she felt the loss of her senses leave her body unattainted, her eyes desperately trying to peel themselves free from the kunai, and whenever she tried, her vision would become blurry only for it to refocus a second later into the weapon. Narumi, dodge to the left. Narumi felt her eyes go wide as Natsu's voice echoed through the forest, deciding to trust the voice from her brother as she forced her body to move to the left. Her muscles felt heavy from the movement, like something was weighing her down, and as soon as she moved like she was in slow motion, but in reality it was only a couple of seconds. A strong gust of wind passed by her face, making her hair fly as Naruto's fist nearly came into contact with her lower jaw. When she noticed the startled look overcome Naruto's features the second she dodged his attack, did she feel her senses snap back to normal. Eyes flashing back to Naruto's body, bringing her hand up and using her wrist to send Naruto's arm to the side. Still trying to collect himself from his attack, failing, he barely even noticed his arm getting smacked away until it was too late. Not even reacting, he felt the chakra-charged fist impact with his chin, sending him flying upwards. Naruto gasped in pain as several specks of blood flew from his mouth as his vision shook from the heaviness in his head. He felt dazed and confused, not even caring to listen to Aisabu that his jaw was now slightly broken thanks to the uppercut. He felt his Sharingan pulse as he felt his body start to descend back to the ground, blinking several times as his vision started to fix itself. As soon as he was able to see again, he looked up, seeing Natsu flying down onto him from the sky, Rasengan in hand. With a roar, Natsu slammed the jutsu into Naruto's chest, making Naruto scream out in pain as his body flew down to the ground, creating a crater where he landed. The ground shook from the impact as Natsu ended his technique, jumping in the air and landing right next to Narumi, who waited patiently where she stood. Narumi spared her brother a glance, eyes traveling to his shoulder. "I see your arm is fixed. Thank goodness." Natsu nodded, moving his arm in circles, showing Narumi that he could move it with no problem. "Yeah, thanks to you I was able to prioritize the Kyuubi's chakra to heal it faster. Thank you, by the way. Without you I don't think I would be half as good as I am now if I was hit with that strange distortion jutsu of his." Natsu just smirked, closing his fist into a thumb as he winked towards his sister, pointing to his eyes with his thumb. "It's all thanks to my sage mode. I was able to track him much easier thanks to this." Narumi turned back to the crater where Naruto was still in, smoke rising from the hole making it almost impossible to see through as it blinded both of them when they got close enough. Motioning her head in Naruto's direction, she spoke to Natsu. "Is he still in there?" Narumi questioned. Natsu nodded. "Yeah, he is. His chakra seems much smaller than it was before. I can't imagine him being able to stand after all of that." "Good." Narumi breathed a sigh of relief, using a small wind jutsu to push away the remaining cloud of dust. "Now we should take him back to Tucson. Do you know what he's—" Not even being able to finish her sentence, Naruto's body suddenly exploded into chakra. The blast was so strong that it sent both Narumi and Natsu skidding backwards slightly. Natsu and Narumi were forced to cover his eyes from the wind, eyes squinting, trying to see exactly what changed with their brother. Natsu did scowl as he looked away, flexing his body to withstand the pressure. "Damn it, why won't you just give up, Naruto? Stop forcing yourself to fight us. I'm getting sick and tired of the two of you getting in my way." Both Narumi and Natsu felt their spines stiffen as Naruto spoke. His voice had dropped several octaves lower, sounding like a new person entirely. Something that both Namika's siblings found fitting due to his new personality. All they could see was small flashes of gold spark through the dust as Natsu felt his heart skip a beat. His senses overloaded as he felt a disgusting amount of vile chakra ooze from Naruto's position. And this wasn't like the chakra from Isabu that he had felt earlier. No, this was entirely Naruto's own personal chakra that was laced with a miserable, repulsive feeling. You could practically feel the amount of malice spreading across the field, unmistakably the source of the pain that Naruto was no doubt feeling. "I just wanted to help, to be a man that Shisui Nisan would have been proud of." The dust then cleared away, revealing Naruto standing completely unharmed in the middle of the crater. His shirt and jacket were completely shredded by the Rasengan, revealing his tan physique and the large scar over his stomach visible for all to see. But it wasn't the large blemish that drew the siblings' attention onto him, it was the large golden humanoid avatar that now surrounded Naruto. Around his torso was a golden ribcage that acted like a protective layer, shielding him from any harm that may or not come his way. What the? Narumi muttered as she looked on in horror at the large golden avatar. She didn't even hear the cries of Natsu to get away as he grabbed her sleeve and brought her further away from Naruto. "What in the world is that?" I don't know. I've never seen anything like this before." Natsu answered honestly, not sure what to make out of the situation at all. Naruto felt like he was on cloud 9, his chest swelled with power that he had never felt before, like it was injected into his veins and pumped to his heart. Like millions of tiny electric needles spread across his bones and muscles, rocketing through him, making him feel absolutely elated. He raised his head upwards, blood leaking from both of his eyes as a devilish smile spread across his face, reaching his eyes to the point that it looked like he was going to break his own jaw. His eyes settled on the avatar above him, looking into the matching red eyes of his Sharingan. And he started to laugh maniacally to himself, his body shaking wildly from his episode, not even bothering to hide his exultant joy from the world. His shrieks of joy only grew louder as he stretched his arms out, enjoying the feeling of power cascade onto him. "Watch me, Shisui Nisan. Watch me save the shinobi world." Naruto feverishly yelled to the sky, a matching golden arm shooting out of the socket where his left arm used to be. Only this arm was skinny, thinner in size, resembling the bones of a skeleton, lacking his Sharingan away from his avatar's eyes as moved his golden arm till it was outstretched in front of him. His open palm smashing into a fist as he looked at Natsu and Narumi, immensely enjoying the shocked faces of the two of them with a crazed expression shining in his blood-leaking eyes. Susanoo. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.